Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of your Brains Coach podcast. My name is Angela Shurina. I'm your host, I'm your Brains Coach, and it is my job here to bring to you all the best, cutting edge, most effective, most recent, most interesting, and useful brain body tools so you could feel your best, look your best, make your best possible decisions, all with the purpose to create the life experience that you want and express your fullest potential. Today, folks, first of all, a small announcement. An article just came out, an article that I wrote a couple of weeks ago. And now it was published on Balance the Grind online publication for people like you who want to achieve a lot, create a lot, but also have beautiful, balanced, whatever it means for you specifically, life experience, high quality of living and fulfillment and achievement. And in that article, I wrote about how to simplify healthy lifestyle through tracking the most fundamental aspects of our health, like, for example, step count, or, for example, the amount of water you drink, and also all the tips and tools to make this behavior simple and easy and something that simplifies your life, not makes it more complicated. So the purpose of that article is to help you to understand and get inspired, get motivated that health is actually simple. That's how our grandparents had it. And all the animals in the animal kingdom know how to maintain their health and fitness. For them, it's being instinctual and following what is in their genes. For us, complicated human psychology and society, social environment, right? It got a little bit complex with all the technology and trackers and things that you can know about your health, from your heart rate variability to different stages of your sleep. But the core behaviors that will give you 90% of health benefits and more when you do them consistently, they're very few. I simplified it to 5 numbers and haven't yet seen a better model. So 5 numbers that you gotta make happen every single day. And when you do that, your health and fitness and looks and energy will skyrocket. You know, all this, again, supplements and triggers and routines and programs and all these things, they're just a ways to implement the basics. But a lot of people get lost in all this specifics and widgets, and then people get lost. People lose track of the core behaviors of the simple stuff that actually gives the most benefits. So check it out. The link is in the show notes. Let me know what you think, connect, and put the most fundamental behaviors in place in whatever way works for you. And you'll be amazed when you do those consistently, how much better your health, your fitness, your vitality get. Check it out. Again, the link is in the show notes. And now back to the topic of our conversation today. That is energy management. And folks, energy. What is energy? Energy is how you feel. That's how you can put your finger on it and know whether you're in good state overall or not that good. You know, I was listening to Andrew Huberman's podcast the other day. Star neuroscientist, one of the best on Apple, for example, podcast last year, but just amazing the quality of information and how he gives us this information. Amazing podcast. But anyhow, on his podcast, he was talking about immune system and how to prevent getting sick, especially if you are in a colder climate during this month. And he was saying that the first signal or the first sign of you coming down with something, and you probably already know about that. The first signal, the first sign is that your energy gets low when it's supposed to be not low. Like you wake up and you're already feeling not up to meet the day. I remember during all these COVID times, one time I felt like I was coming down with something. And you know how I knew that? I woke up and I already felt lazy, like I didn't want to get out of bed. And that is such not a common thing for me. And I had a good night of sleep. And at that point, I realized, yeah, probably something is happening in my body, and that something probably has to do with all this COVID and stuff going around. So for a few days, I was in that energy state, like lowerish, and then I got over it. All that to say that your energy is your first signal, sign that if you consistently are in that low state of energy, something is happening in your body, in your lifestyle. Your cells are not doing well. And your cells are where the energy is produced. We have specific organelles or parts of your cells that create energy, mitochondria. They create energy in the form of ATP, primary molecule of energy. And so when those mitochondria do not do well and do not produce all that energy that they're supposed to be producing, they're less effective, or we have less of them, guess what? You experience that as a lower energy state. Now, also another reason why you might feel low energy state is because something is taking more energy than usual. Like your immune system it requires a lot of energy when it is activated and it's battling with something. That's why when we coming down with something, one of the reasons why we feel low on energy is because your immune system is getting a lot of it to produce different antibodies and other fighting agents, and to do just a lot more work than usual to make sure that you recover, survive, and have a chance to thrive, reproduce, and all this good stuff that life is. So energy, this is a primary indicator of how well you are doing at this moment. So when I do any health assessment, I'm like, where is your energy level? Is it on a scale from 1 to 10? Where is it? 1 or 10? For you as a change maker, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, someone who wants to achieve things in life, energy is the currency of your achievement. And so you need to do your best to make sure that you do everything you can to maximize the production of that energy. By the way, your emotions are the secondary indicator of your energy state. There is a lot of data and research coming out now that depression, for example, is the state or consistent state of low energy. When your mitochondria are not able to produce enough, your brain cells, your neurons, for example, start to starve. They are one of the hungriest cells. Your brain consumes 20% or more of your energy on a daily basis, more than almost any other organ, I believe. Like your heart, your liver are also quite energy demanding, but your brain is that hungry organ, and your brain consists of neurons, those nerve cells, and they are the hungriest, consume a lot of fuel. So depression, mood, also secondary indicators of your energy state. And so if you're not feeling like it, guess what? Chances are you might be in a lower energy state. That's why energy is so crucial to any of your goals, achievements, productivity. And when we talk about energy, you want to understand that a huge part of it, and all the energy, depends on how well your physical body does, specifically how well your cells do, your mitochondria, energy producing parts of your cells. And those mitochondria are affected by your nutrition, by your sleep, by how well you manage stress physically. That's why, when I talk to leaders and I start talking to them, especially ambitious ones, about stress management, they're like, I don't stress. If you don't manage your physical stress, the stress that your nervous system endures every day, it doesn't matter what your psychology is. I'm not talking about that, how stressed or in control you feel. But if you don't have tools to unload that stress, physical stress in your nervous system, you are experiencing that whether you psychologically are affected by that much or not. And in the state of stress, for example, elevated stress, when you're more in a fight or flight state, more often than in rest and digest, your body actually is spending a lot more energy. Like, there is no number on it, but stressed state mobilizes all of your resources to be ready to fight or flight. So you're like that engine that is on and running nonstop, or wasting or creating and spending all of this energy. Where in a state of rest, where you modulate your stress well, you are so much more economical with your energy. That's why also for your productivity and for your health and for your immunity and for your mood, it's so important to, for example, manage stress, to adjust your energy state and to be more economical with usage of the energy that your mitochondria produce. So energy, it's about the production and making your mitochondria with your lifestyle, nutrition choices, make them more effective, but then also not wasting it, but by, for example, not managing stress, or not wasting it by, for example, not doing multitasking, because every time you switch tasks, your neurons, your nervous system, your brain have to do additional processes that require energy. And even that switch that requires that glucose, that's fuel, and the production of which also takes energy. So all of that to say, your physical energy, your cognitive energy, they are interlinked. And so when we are talking about even productivity, you cannot separate it from your physical state of health. That's why when leaders, now I start to talk to more leaders in the companies and team leaders, when they talk to me about how can I motivate my people, how can I make them more proactive and productive, and the first thing we need to look at is how can we make people invest more into their health? How can we make them that more part of culture? So it's in fashion or it's popular to take care of yourself. And a lot of it has to do with enabling those behaviors, with making them easy, putting that into schedules, putting different reminders, doing collectively certain activities to create that culture. Because by saying something, not going to make it happen. Just like when you say, oh, I want to get healthier, unless you put it in your calendar, you schedule it, you keep each other accountable, you make it easy, you sign up for, gym or whatever it is, unless you put actions, triggers in your environment, that's not going to happen. So the same is true for people, for teams, for companies. But the main idea here is your physical energy is not separable from your cognitive energy. It's not separable from your productivity. It's not separable from you being productive and your best self. And this is primal. How your cells function, that is primal to everything else you do. How you think, how you perform, how you learn, how the quality of ideas you produce, the rate of those ideas, how much you want to get done every day, how much you want to invest into your life and people around you, even leadership. If you're in a low energy state, you know why there are fewer leaders, people who want to do more things that they're assigned to? Because a lot of people are struggling, whether they're aware or not, with their health and their energy systems. So health, and here again, we have sleep, we have nutrition, we have stress management, and how well you and how consistently you perform, you invest into those behaviors. And again, check out that article that simplifies health and energy production to few core behaviors to do every single day. I make healthy lifestyle really easy, really simple, with a lot of suggestion in that article that is in the show notes. So now let's say your physical energy as at its peak or close to possible. Now we get into other details like your circadian rhythm or 24-hour wake-sleep cycle that most of the creatures on Earth follow. Some are nocturnal, basically some creatures or animals are more active during the night, like rats, for example, or bats, like flying bats. Some creatures like ourselves, we are creatures who are supposed to be, I forgot the scientific term for that, active during the day. And depending on where in your day you are, the hours, your brain works differently, your liver works differently, your digestive system works differently. You at 9 a.m. are not the same person as you are at 6 p.m. So the second part of it is realizing how timing part of the day is crucial to your function, your productivity, your energy state. A little side note here. So I finished Get Things Done. This is like classics of productivity. The subtitle is Stress-Free Productivity, and it's about the deep kind of organization of your life and your work processes by David Allen, one of the top world's experts on productivity, who help a lot of companies and leaders to maximize their productivity through organizing principles that he describes in the book. So anyhow, he talks about this concept, how well you get your things done depend on several factors, but one of those factors is when you schedule things, how much energy do you have for that at that specific time? And based on that, you need to schedule that activity or choose the activity that you're going to do. Here's an example to make it simple. I know, well, for most people, there is midday slump or crash or slowdown in energy. That's just how our biology works. It's slightly different for different people. For me, it's somewhere between 1 and 3 p.m. Everything slows down. And the smarter thing would be, because I also go to bed early, is to make sure I don't schedule critical activities like writing something super complex, writing articles, or coming up with a new program for a team training or for my clients individually. Like, I know that that is not the time for me to do those things. My brain is not at its best thinking capacity. It's more on a sleepier side. But I'm pretty good at actually going for different networking lunches or having virtual coffees, or also taking break, having a little bit of food might be great for that, or doing things like emails that are absolutely not a crucial activity almost in anyone's life, unless you're crafting this really important email to create one-of-a-kind partnerships. But then that email probably also not a great idea to do in that specific time period. So getting back to the idea of circadian scheduling according to the time of the day. Again, you at 9 a.m. is not the same person as you are at 6 p.m. And so smart people, high performers, know their cycles, know their time, and they don't fight it. Folks, you cannot fight that biology. It's too strong. Yes, you can drink coffee. Yes, you can do, cold showers. And we're going to speak about that, how to revitalize your midday slump. But still, you're not going to be at your peak, no matter what you do. So for most people, cognitive peak for focused work, for very deep, detailed work is somewhere around 10, 11 a.m., depending on your chrono time. For me, it actually comes in even earlier because I wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. Naturally, I'm an extreme lark. And for me, that peak comes 8, 9 a.m. And I'm still pretty good till 12 p.m. But then that's where a slowdown happens. And so smart people do what really highly effective people do. They know their cycles they learn that through experimentation and reading about such things as circadian biology, circadian productivity, and then they schedule things accordingly. So there is it is not a coincidence that a lot of early type business owners, entrepreneurs do not like to schedule meetings in the morning, because they know this is my peak time. Like Alex Hormozi, for example, one of the most famous entrepreneurs on social media these days. And he often talks how he doesn't schedule anything till like 12 p.m., I believe, because this is his time to move the most important things forward, to write his books, to think deeper about direction of his business. And he schedules everything else after. And again, there is a reason for that, because you are not the same person at your peak and later in the day. So be aware of that. From Andrew Huberman, I also learned that morning is great time for focused work, for very detailed analytical work. And then later in the day, when you get your second wind, so to speak, but your brain chemistry is actually different because it's getting closer to your bedtime. It's best time for creativity when your logical supervisor is not as active, but you have this additional boost of energy and you have more serotonin usually, a neurochemical of confidence and chill state, and also helps you with creativity because you don't have that sensor, your logical brain, as active. And so during the later part of the day, after the midday slump, usually you're pretty good with creative endeavors. So look into that. If you need to do more creative writing, brainstorming, and working on any project more creatively, or perhaps doing something in the world, like, for example, giving talks and speaking at somewhere between 4 to 6 p.m. also is a very, very great time for me personally. So all that back to the second concept of today and energy management is circadian scheduling, circadian productivity, making sure that you know when you peak. Again, if you're a morning person, probably your cognitive analytical peak, deep work peak is in the morning, a couple of hours after you wake up. For later types, I actually need to do more research into later chronotypes just because I'm not one of them. Most of my clients are early type of people. And to be very fair, there's less data available on later chronotypes like night owls, maybe because they also don't get up early for the studies that are done, right? And those are usually done earlier in the day. Perhaps I have probably a lot more data coming, but experiment. And you probably already know when your peak time is and schedule your most important work there. And that's where you also get a lot more done. What you can done and the quality of that at your peak time is 2, 3, 4 times sped up. You do it faster, you do it better. That's why it's also important to schedule it then. Yes, you can get through this stuff in some fashion later in the day as well, but it's gonna A, take you longer, and B, the quality is just not going to be the same. You're going to be struggling more. So that's why it's also important to do that demanding work early in the day. And guess what? Also, at that time, you have more cognitive resources still fresh. Now, let's get to the third concept of energy management. So now you more or less understand why it is important to schedule specific kind of activities and work during certain times, but not the others. Now, the third thing, the earlier in the day you are, the less stuff you worked with after you're sleeping, the more cognitive capacity you have, the more resources you have available. Like also our brain is this biological organ, but it also works very similar to computer because we probably model a lot of what the computer does by looking at our brain and how that works. So we have working memory in our brain. All the definitions and how exactly works are not that clear yet in neuroscience. But what we know is that working memory that allows us to keep active few data points, it is very limited. And the more things we go through our day, beginning from the time when we wake up, the more data we already store there in that short-term memory, short-term storage device, the less we can put more into and the less capacity we have to add things and to work with newer information. And it kind of gets used up until the next sleep cycle, when the right memories are transferred into more long storage, and this whatever was stored in short-term memory, this working memory, is processed and moved to other parts of the brain, and then we have fresh start next morning. Now, the later in the day we work on anything, the less capacity and storage capacity and operating capacity that working memory has, and the less capability you have to deal with any complex information. That's the bottom line. So what does it all mean? It means that earlier in the day, you have more capacity to work with more data, with more complex data, to make better decisions, to analyze a lot more data points than later in the day. And that's why it's also important to schedule your most important, most complex work for the morning. That's why I'm recording this podcast in the morning when my memory is so fresh, and I can basically freestyle the whole podcast episode in quite a structured way, that keeping track of what I say at the beginning of podcast episode and in the middle and at the end, and then also bringing up all the studies and research and books and other podcasts. So the earlier in the day, the easier it is for you going to be to operate complex tasks and complex data in your brain, creating solutions, making decisions, coming up with some content. And by the end of the day, it gets used up, and you start feeling like your cup is overflowing. And that's a really normal feeling. That's what it feels like when you work in memory at its capacity. And at the end of the day, especially if you're a knowledge worker, that's what's going to happen. A few things that can help you to make it last longer, preventing cognitive fatigue as well. Unitask, work on fewer tasks, batch similar kinds of tasks. So for example, if this is a day to deal with email, maybe this is the day to deal with email and eliminate that task from all the other parts of your week or days of your week. If you want to do some reports or writing, also schedule that for specific days as much as possible. So combine similar tasks together. That makes the usage of your working memory and all the other cognitive capacities much more effective. That's why, for example, for me, when I dedicate a day to writing a blog and I do nothing but just this one task, it's actually a lot of work. It takes a lot of hours. But at the end of the day, I feel almost like free, that was a day off. Because when you do one task, two tasks, when you batch similar tasks together and you don't switch between anything else and you work distraction free, that really reduces the amount of resources that are needed from your brain and your nervous system to get things done. It makes the whole process just so much more effective, right? So bundle up similar tasks. Don't multitask again. Switching, there is a cost to that. When, for example, you work on something and then you check your email or you check your social media or you have a conversation with someone, like eliminate that as much as possible. Especially if your brain is what brings the difference into business, into your mission, into your vision, please guard your uninterrupted work time as a treasure, because it is. The more you allow yourself to be distracted, the less discipline and arrangement you have around that, the more ineffective you're going to be using your resources, the more fatigue going to accumulate, the faster, and also the quality of your work will suffer a lot. There is only so much you can do by working interruptedly compared to when you work in chunks in 2-3 hours of focused work. So understand this, right? Do not multitask, batch. Remember that your working memory has capacity, so do the most complex work, the most that requires a lot of data processing early in the day. Open loops, another one, open loops and decisions. So recently also this book was featured on my podcast. We talked about that, Willpower. Check it out. Willpower, that's the name of the book. Subtitle, I'm not sure at the moment, but you'll find it, Willpower. And the book talks about, and by the way, Get Things Done by David Allen also talks about that. They talk about a couple of concepts here. Number one, the more decisions you make throughout the day, whether those decisions are about your food, about your fitness, about your clothing, about your makeup, the more decisions you make, the less you have available. It has to do with all this decision making takes processing power in your neurons, those hungry cells that require a lot of energy and glucose, and they create a lot of byproducts of their function that adds to cognitive fatigue. The most important concept, the more decisions you make, any kinds of decisions. That's why people like Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, a lot of entrepreneurs, Alex Hormozy, like to wear the same stuff and not think about that. There is no magic. The simple explanation, the more decisions you make, the ones that do not matter, like the choice of your food for breakfast. That's why I eat the same freaking breakfast and lunch and dinner with a little variety of fruit and vegetables. The more decisions you make, the less you have available. That has to do that they tap into the same cognitive power and working memory as everything else. You have one brain and it doesn't separate its resources usage for trivial decisions or more complex decisions and work decisions. So the more decisions you make, the less good decisions you're gonna make. Limit the amount of decisions you make by habituating the stuff like food and exercise and clothing. For ladies, makeup. Wear the same freaking makeup. Don't think about it 10 times per day. And the second thing that's going to drain your cognitive energy, your decision-making capacity, basically everything your brain does, is having open loops. So Google it. Open loops in coaching, in psychology, anything that has to do with learning about our ability to cognitively perform different tasks. Open loops is anything that you know that you're aware of, you must do, you should think about, basically anything you haven't made decision about, but you need to make that decision and you need to take that action. So that is an open loop. Let's get actually to relationships. If you are in a relationship with someone and you need to talk with them, but you're delaying, and you haven't put a date on the calendar, that is an open loop. You gotta get cat food and you gotta get it, but you haven't decided when and how you're gonna do that. That is an open loop. You gotta get your protein powder, but you haven't decided when, what, and how you're gonna go about that. That is an open loop. You're gonna get certain things done at work, from emails to projects to talking to your teammates or your boss or your supervisor, and you haven't decided how to go about that or when you're gonna do that. An open loop. And every single open loop is on the loop in your working memory, taking capacity from your creativity, from your decision making, from all of the important work. And the bottom line, the more of those open loops you have, the more overwhelmed you're going to feel, the more anxious, just like your cup, overflowing you're going to feel. The less capacity to do better thinking, the less clarity you're going to have. And you're going to feel like you cannot handle all of that is on your plate. The solution, very simple. Take some time, 10, 15 minutes. It actually doesn't take that long. When I work with my clients and we practice it doesn't take much at all. So you sit down and you write down every single thing that is on your mind that you need to make decision about. So write it all down, even if it's a whole page, and then take the next 5 minutes and either write down a solution, a decision, or schedule when you're going to think about all of that. And now guess what? All your brain needs from you about those items, not to get them done. And that's what's been shown in research. To close those loops, to eliminate them from your working memory, all you need to do is to make a decision when you're going to deal with that. So write it all out. Now it's not in your head. It's on the list that you can see. Put it in a safe place. and then decide when you're going to deal with that. Just set a date and time that will allow for all of that to happen effectively. And then you're going to feel like all of a sudden you have so much clarity and capacity to deal with life and work. And you'll be surprised how well and fast it works. So that has been also eating up your cognitive power, your energy, adding up to your daily fatigue and overwhelm. And that's about it, what I wanted to share with you. But I'm going to add a couple more items. How to deal, for example, with that midday slump to freshen up yourself. One of the best ways, nap. And guys, a lot of people would tell me, I don't have time for naps. Well, look at it from another perspective. Do you have time for additional 1 hour of mental struggle? Or you take a nap, and research shows that that refreshes your brain to not full capacity, but 40, 50%, everything else is going to go so much faster and smoother. So for me, the question is always, you don't have time for a 20-minute nap, but you have time for additional hour of struggle. And that's what it comes down to. Efficiency that's going to be added to your work. And your some of your working memory is also going to be freed up from all of that data and stuff that you accumulate throughout the day, right? So napping is amazing. Also going for a walk outside, getting exposed to bright light, cold water, like cold water shower, or just splashing cold water into your face and on your hands, your palms. Those are areas of your body, your face, your palms that are easily available and that transmit the temperature of anything the fastest. That basically means you change your core temperature the fastest when you expose your face, your palms, also your feet to any temperature, cold or hot. In the middle of the day, we're looking for cold. I already mentioned walks, light. You can also try Yoga Nidra or non-sleep depressed protocol, what the name that Andrew Huberman gave to it. One of the favorite ways to refresh his brain of Sundar Pichai, a CEO of Google. I think he's still a CEO of Google, but in research, yes, it shows to restore a lot of this cognitive capacity. Yoga Nidra, I do my 10-minute protocol every afternoon. If I'm not napping, I'm usually not a napper, but Yoga Nidra does the job really, really well. So that is your midday refresher. When it comes to food, do not eat a lot of food in the middle of the day. It's going to crush you like nothing else. It's not just about carbs. It's also about too much fat or too much food. So eat light, salad with some lean protein like tuna, white fish, or shrimp or chicken breast is something that's going to do the job. If it's a salad, don't put a whole bunch of fatty dressing on it. That's, you know what I personally love? I just eat carrots. I might also have an apple and tuna, and that's my to-go snack. A lot of my clients love biltong or beef jerky and some apple because it's just so freaking damn convenient. And that is it, folks. I hope you learned a ton on today's podcast about energy management. You probably didn't know how complex that is and how much of your lifestyle pays into your daily energy budget and how your cognitive performance depends on the time of the day and how becoming more productive and smarter with your effectiveness has actually a lot to do with when you schedule what tasks. And the best, most prolific people in the industry, whatever industry you are in, already know that. People know the rhythms and they follow them instead of struggling with them. So if you have the capacity to look at your schedule and redesign it based on your best peak performance times, then please do so. If you need more information, if you're not sure how to still incorporate all of that knowledge into your lifestyle, into your work, then please do connect, and we're going to get on a complimentary session, and I'm going to answer all of your questions, give you more details. And how can you claim this session? The link is also and always, well, for now, in the show notes. Use it till it lasts. Schedule your complimentary session, and let's talk about your most effective time so you can deliver more, achieve more, do less, and have much better quality of living. And don't forget to check out the article in the show notes about making a healthy lifestyle super simple. 5 core numbers that you need to track to make sure your health is on track and you're getting 90% and more benefits. So check it out. The article is in the show notes as well. And the last but not least, please do share this podcast, guys, with as many people as possible. That's how this podcast reaches more people. So please help me to spread the word and make more people more prolific, productive, so we are all successful creating this beautiful world around us where everyone can succeed. So spread the word, share, and have an amazing week ahead, being very smart about creating more energy, not wasting it, and using it in the most effective way. Have an awesome day, and you'll hear from me very soon.